Wow, you are welcome. Today's debate is quite interesting. Honorable MUKASA MBIDDE is refusing to accept that his party was sold to NRM by his party president, Honorable Norbert Mao. It's quite interesting. Let's hear him.
The coach it in the party terms, but that
is it
only...
who handed it to Mao and Mao handed it to NRM?
No, Mao did not get it. He did not get that.
Yeah.
I thought that leadership. No.
No, he got a piece of it.
He got just a little bit.
Small piece of it.
Because people formed the SUI and handed it over to Besigye.
Yeah.
So right. He missed out on that.
Yeah.
He only came with the 3 districts from northern Uganda.
Yes.
And so he failed. But now Dr. Besigye got it. He didn't even hand it over. If it was about somebody handing it over, it was only snatched from him. So,
the ugly incidents of last week, over the weekend, left us asking, could this be just a precursor to what is yet to come?
I don't know. I do not believe in the durability of disagreeing entities for purposes that they can maintain such disagreement as durable as practicable, except obviously if such, of course, flames of division is found elsewhere. But I can tell you that what happened in Masaka is just a microcosm of what exists in the whole body politic in Uganda. And you can give it an interpretation which is two-pronged. One, there is a natural development within the NUP, and 2, there could be other extraneous effort, probably fermented by the existing entity, the NRM, in terms of fanning flames of disunity now throughout the opposition body politic, which obviously then does not live out the national unity platform. Now, what do I mean? The first limb of interpretation, in my opinion now, refers probably to the kind of difference within which the 2 types of politicians exist in the national unity platform. What is I would have used the faucet origo, but my seniors stopped me from using it. But the progeniture, the origins of all the politicians that now have formed the conglomerate called the National Unity Platform speaks to the conduct, the factors and combinations that take place within the National Unity Platform.
Was it some marriage of convenience?
So I can tell you, for example, when you look at the Honorable Mpuga and that group of intellectuals that joined the NUP, what is their progeniture of politics? It is definitely anchored in the Buganda Kingdom and partly the Democratic Party, which is a part of brain power, in the intellectual base. Then you look now at those that are at the helm, the honchos and the sachems of NUP. What is their own progeniture? Where do they come from? They spring from show business. They do not have a lot of regard to intellectual capacity. That is the truth. Whatever they do is majorly for purposes of depicting a picture. They can call themselves generals because you see, when you look at artists are those people that can christen themselves anything. They can christen themselves doctors when they have not seen blackboards capable of being interpreted as such. They can call themselves generals and even don military attire even when they have no knowledge of even the elementary marksmanship or even substantive training in terms of survival and chieftain's antiques. I can tell you, those are those that will depict a picture, and at the level of the subconscious level of their brain, they will live up to that picture. I have seen some of their leaders move with they have been calling themselves president even before they joined the politics. So you cannot even know now whether they are presidents or they want to be president of Uganda. Because when you look at how they move with all the state paraphernalia. They move with the chair, with the coat of arms, with everything, with the soldiers, with all imaginary. And now that is the group. So you have got a dichotomy of two types of politicians. One that lives the figment of a fertile imagination, some chimera of some sort, that they are already leaders. And one that believes, I think they are working for purposes that we can obtain leadership. So one actually...
So two ends have failed to...
There are two ends and they continue to be two. Now, if you want them to work together, there must now be some other force that can be arbitrary in nature to the extent that they can be able to work. But now the third force that exists is that force that now intends to fan the flames of disunity. It can do so either directly or indirectly. Now, that is what explains the impasse within the National Unity Platform. And,
okay, for starters, were these teething problems that were never attended to from the onset, or it's now just erupting?
I think they were just hidden. You know, we used to study what they used to call the Pleistocene cataclysm. Now, they existed as centrifugal forces long ago. It is just that now they are just becoming outrightly for everybody to see. They are now volcanic reactions. We need to pray harder. The times again have come for our seniors to again organize the whole substantive opposition. Because you see, there is a problem. The question that should linger is, what is the mission? Parties are created, they find other parties. Then you start calling them now to unite. But why do you create when there is already one you can lead? So that explains the body politic that has been established in Uganda. They know, of course, they say when the mother cow is eating, the younger ones are also watching to observe the movement of the jaws. That's all how they do. Everybody in Uganda wants to create something they can lead within the interpretation of their own capacity to lead. And that tells you why political parties are numerously created. So the multiplicity of those that are created are intended to be coined and carved to the capacity of the leader creating them, to the extent that any other intent for you to disagree with the conduct and the demands of the leader, of course, now describes you as an alien and outfit. So in my opinion, I think there is a politics which is obtaining in the country, being funded directly or indirectly by those that actually do not want the country to obtain our own substantive transition.
Well,
and then the natural calamity that befalls Ugandans' body politic.
Well, Godba, tensions within NUP have simmered on for a while, and some of us have imagined that, well, this is typical of politics of the day or of the country, but do you think this is the tipping point now that the Mpuga and the Bobby factions have now become irreconcilable?
No, first of all, let me put it this way. I believe, I think I would even take it up from where my brother Mbidde, left it, that you are dealing with a much bigger picture. A discussion of what happened in Masaka, or any of such a discussions, I would call them anecdotes. These are really anecdotes in the bigger scheme of things. One needs to understand that there is a point at which a society gets broken, and then certain things become inevitable. So the fights in NUP or in FDC or in any other group, they are inevitable because of the conditions, the political and economic conditions that we are living in as a country. And our viewers need to understand that if anything, what's happening in NUP is happening in every other segment of society. You can start from the student movement. When I'm sure when it be some of you when we were at university, we had our groups. Mm-hmm. You would have, let's say, Ankole Students Association. If you go now there, you'll find that there's one for Mbarara, for Iva, and for whatever. You can then even go to sub-counties and even to parishes. They keep on breaking the point that Mbidde was describing and said, oh, everybody wants something they can lead. The space is so suffocated that there is no clear transitions of leadership that if I am in this group, I have a possibility that I'm going to lead. So why not form my own thing? You can go to the trade union movement. How many trade unions do we have now? So consider trade unions as, consider workers as a constituency and think of trade unions as political parties. So we have a multiplicity of them, like we have in political parties, because there is a tendency by the elite in this country to blame politicians and blame politicians in politics that they are quarreling. And yet every segment of our society, almost everybody is quarreling. In fact, I would even say, I mean, go to religion. We have, how many religions do we have? How many churches? All of them, all these clergy leaders, they are all telling us there is one God. But when have we stopped forming churches? Simply because the conditions that we are living in necessitate that people have to find enclaves where they can hide, where they can organize themselves. So when you think of NUP, NUP is a creation of the conditions that have been created in the country. By the way, let's also look at the group called NRM. NRM is not different from NUP. I can tell you that if Museveni didn't have the opportunity to appoint Muhoozi's supporters in the cabinet, you would have the tensions in NRM. Only that because for them they control state power, maybe they would not be shouting at each other like NUP. But there's no difference that you have NRM, you have the Muhoozi group Pilau, and they are all fighting PLU, which is the same thing anyway. But essentially the point I'm making is that they are, each of all these groups, they are almost the same because they are the product of the conditions that have been created over the last almost 40 years.
Yeah, but at its formation, NUP typified a new politics.
No, it did not. What typified the new politics was the people power movement. The people power movement was a platform that brought together Ugandans that thought needed to end the dictatorship of NRM and the state capture. The moment the people who were activists in people power metamorphosed into a political party, it was only inevitable that they would end up where they are.
So where they are, do you imagine there is any chance of reconciliation, or things can only get worse?
I actually even don't understand their differences, so I don't know what are they reconciling about. What is their difference? The only thing that unites Ugandans, or that should unite Ugandans, is that they all appreciate that there is state capture. That Museveni and his group have captured the state and instrumentalized it against the Ugandan citizens. Is that something difficult to agree on? Now, once we have agreed on that is the single most important problem we need to address, then the mechanisms of how to confront it, for me, are not contested. So if you are Mpuga or Abedi Bwanika, but by the way, you opened by saying Abedi Bwanika spoke truth to power. I don't think that Abedi Bwanika is one of those people that I can consider that they speak the truth. But if you are any of those people, and you think that you are also focusing on how to liberate the state of Uganda from capture, and NUP is not the space where you can do it, form something else. Abedi Bwanika has a church. He can even go at his church and preach and mobilize Ugandans to fight this dictatorship. I think he also has a political party. Did he wind it up or did it?
No.
No. So he also has a political party. So what is his problem? Yeah, if anything, people like Abedi Bwanika for me are a problem because they are diverting everybody from the fight that we should be involved in and trying they are diverting everybody. So he has a church, he has a political party. Well, how come he does not want to use those vehicles to contribute to the fight? Why does he make Kyagulanyi or NUP his enemy? Why is that? So the problem is with some of these guys. I don't think that People who are in NUP I think they are doing their best.
So when you're making a diagnosis, is the fight about egos? Is it about eating? Is it about ideology?
I think for me, I tilt more to the conspiracy theory that Mbidde has articulated, that in our current circumstances, where you have a regime like NRM, it is deploying all resources of state, that's money, intelligence, security, to disorganize all the other segments of society. And as I've mentioned earlier, it's not only the political segment. It's the professional segment, it's the religious segment, it's the trade union segment, all the other segments of our society. It's deploying resources to make sure that there is no unity in how you can confront the dictatorship that is our biggest problem right now.
Well, Honorable Mbidde, traditionally, parties are anchored on ideology and they have dispute resolution mechanisms within the party. When you analyze deeply the affairs of National Unity Platform, a party that came with a lot of momentum, do you think they lack these little simple values?
NUP up to today is still not yet a political party. It can be registered with a certificate, but it's still a task force. It still runs.
It's a political group.
It is a group.
It's a group.
No, it's a party. It's a political.
It is a response.
Premised somewhere and registered with the Electoral Commission.
Yes, because that is what the practice demands.
Yeah.
That if you want to clearly articulate properly the objects for which you must stand within the body politic of Uganda, because we are generally, in terms of our statute books, a multi-party political dispensation. So this is a protest that has to eventually culminate into a substantive political party for registration purposes and running. But I can tell you that none of them has received the necessary capacity intellectually to run a political organization. So what you call ideology obviously equally doesn't exist yet. Not only in the NUP, but all of our political parties. Even DP, because you find somebody, you ask them what ideology refers to,
even NRA,
they don't know. Even NRA,
what is their ideology?
when you read their own constitution, the beginning of preamble, it states that it is ideologically multi-ideological. So that means you look like a madman throwing stones, and everything you hit, you call it the target. So that is the system that exists.
Say this again.
It sounds like a madman who is throwing stones, and everything you hit, you call it the target. So that is NRM. So what exists now is a problem that a group that definitely now is supposedly the ringleader of a protest against the establishment is itself now fomenting disunity. Now there is a problem to disunity, by the way, to disagreement, because like Godman says, nobody knows why they disagree, because everybody begins to cite different reasons. Others are saying because there are some homosexuals here.
Yes.
Then others are saying there is some money that was taken. But none of them.
Others think the young people are abusing us.
And let me tell you, psychologically, everybody believes his opinion is right and the other person's opinion is wrong. I inquired why that exists. And somebody asked me, why would you keep an opinion that you believe is wrong? So the meaning is that the opinion you have, you believe is outright right and the others are wrong. That is what calls for dialogue. Until now, the intellectuals again come. I can tell you this country has also been left now to the dogs. Because the intellectuals are running their own businesses, they are in hospitals. The good thing is that they keep coming up. The traders used to think they are safe. They are now here.
Exactly.
In fact, traders most likely will form a political party if they are serious on their own struggles. Because they have also now seen that every penny is going to be taxed. They used to accumulate primitively, and they thought that was the safety that would exist. Now they have
politics was for politicians.
And politics was for politicians. There was one time I asked somebody to direct me where a political rally was in Makerere University. And the guy told me, hey, these democracy guys, they are down there. So he really believes that is a different country from the country he lives in. Now we must all be united. So, Simon, what is existing in the NUP? Not even the leaders of NUP have control over it.
No.
There are times when we know that the dog wags its tail. But this is a situation where the tail is wagging the dog. And until now, extra effort is done, extraneously, by the way, recognizing the mission for which we stand. That is the only way we are going to get to the best end.
There's been a school of thought that NUP is premised on Buganda and Catholic interests. How come these two institutions are not prevailing? And do you really read into their role?
No, it is not even true that NUP is premised. It is just a result of the recently concluded general elections.
It's actually part of the propaganda against NUP.
Yeah, when you look at what they obtained, obviously, one, NUP itself was not voted for as a party. There was a sentiment, because you see, when there is authoritarian rule, like what exists in Uganda, there is a creation of two types of politics. The politics of those that think they are part of the authoritarians, and those that actually believe they are downtrodden. So it is usually two sentiments. It is very hard for you to create a third one. We tried it under TDA, but it was impossible. So government ultimately, by the way, in terms of its conduct, creates now who the leader of opposition is. For example, the one candidate government will arrest and release during an election. The population will know this is the one that they fear. They will vote for that person, whatever that person comes for. Now, that does not mean, of course, ultimately, the declaration of results will show that his entity is number 2. But the voting pattern was decided by completely different things. Number 1, of course, there were some arrangements in terms of candidatures, also participated in by some people from Mengo, but also proximity of information, because you remember the candidate himself had been stopped from making a lot of political rallies here and there. So information flow did not go beyond certain regions as quickly as was necessary during the campaign period. Probably if he was led to traverse the whole country, we would have a different picture. So what exists right now, because if, and this is what again now creates, for me it is foolhardy for anybody to attack people whose premature in terms of progeniture of politics is Mengo, when actually most of the members of parliament you have are from Buganda. Because I can tell you that now there is going to be some reorganization. What happens if those two people fighting each now emerge with a new entity? We will now be struggling to generate who is going to be number 2, and the state will choose what they want. The state usually chooses who should be the opposition. They arrest you, release you, they do that, depending on the threats available. If you pose a threat that is most likely touching the nerve of the state itself, they do not, by any chance, they cannot make sure they guarantee that you will be the number 2 in an election. So what is existing now, I don't know who actually is motivating the disunity, because this is going to relegate now the two entities to nothingness, and the third one will arise and will create the most viable sense.
Well, there is a very strong speculation of the emergence of another force to counter the national unity platform. Do you find it viable for the times?
I don't believe that there's going to be another force that will necessarily be focused on countering a NUP. First of all, let me make this point clear. That theory, Simon, that NUP is only popular in Uganda is part of the regime propaganda. Because if the regime really believed that NUP is only popular in Buganda, they would remove all the restrictions that people like Bobby Wine and Chiza Besigye and others can go across the country and sell their political agenda. Because if the rest of the country is not interested in their politics, they would be chased away. But the regime knows that actually the discontent against the regime is shared across the country. It's across the entire country, and therefore that's why they have to use the security forces to make sure that these gentlemen do not go and interact with voters across the country. So the theory about NUP and Buganda is a total piece of misinformation and propaganda by the regime. But secondly, at the moment, I think Ugandans need to understand that the monster that is against us, that is poised against Uganda, is much bigger than just a political party. So in other words, there is no single political party, whether you call it NUP, whether you call it FDC, whether you call it a third, fourth, that is going to be there fighting for Ugandans against the current NRM junta. Like I've said before, that the nature of state capture, the emasculation of state institutions, the oppression and the violence that is unleashed against Ugandans can only be fought by Ugandans. So that's why I've said time and again that right now what is needed is what I call collective citizens' resistance against the current junta. So in other words, you would have Ugandans who are organized politically, who are organized religiously, those in the professional bodies, those in trade unions, those in every segment of our society saying, no, we need to get our country back. We need institutions to work for us. And therefore, that is, if that is the third force, then that would be the force that works. But the idea that any one of the segments of our society can be able to fight the current oppression by the NRM is just untenable. And like Michael said here, these traders, you remember there was a time when Vesija and Rukwago used to go to mobilize traders and say, guys, things are bad. And these guys would say, for us, please leave your politics, don't disrupt our business. Now they closed their businesses without Vesija and Rukwago showing up anywhere. Ultimately, the conditions that we are living in, the oppression, the deprivation, because people are deprived across this country, it's going to reach everybody. And at that point, then we'll stop discussing NUP and these small groups, by the way. Because as a matter of fact, Uganda doesn't have political parties. Other than the DP and UPC, which have been demobilized over time, a group that emerged as a political party was FDC. It has been demobilized. NRM is just the state. Museveni and the state that has been captured. So nobody, even when I hear people talking about opposition political parties, I'm like, but you can't have opposition political parties without a ruling party. If what is presented as a ruling party is the state of Uganda, what capacity do you have as a political party to oppose it? Because when you go to campaign in Ntungamo, if you are campaigning in Ntungamo on an opposition political ticket, you are campaigning against the intelligence officers, the DSO and his team. You are campaigning against the police. You are campaigning against the LOCs that have been captured by NRM. So
state machinery.
You are campaigning against the state machinery. So sometimes these the bidders who are sometimes I say we are opposition, I don't even understand them. I think that they don't appreciate the problem or the obstacle that you are dealing with, because you are dealing with the state. Now, until Ugandans come together and liberate the state of Uganda from the current capture by the NRM junta, you cannot have credible and solid political parties.
Hitherto, internal strife would be resolved within boardrooms and internally.
No,
now it doesn't
happen that way.
Does this trajectory speak to toxic politics?
No, the toxic politics have been here, Simon. So it's not because of people quarreling at the funeral. From 2001, we've unleashed violence on our people until in 2021, when over 100 people had to be killed for us to elect the president. I think Ugandans need to really get to a point where we can also have sense that you are killing over 100 people, you are imprisoning over 1,000 people for you to elect the president. Don't you see that we as Ugandans, we must be looking at ourselves and say, maybe we are subhuman. How do you accept a situation where you have to kill your own people to elect the president? And then you start blaming NUP and these other people. There's a much bigger problem that we need to deal with as Ugandans. And I think that problem can only be dealt with collectively So in most cases, even the media, Simon, you divert to discuss NUP, to discuss DP, to discuss FDC. I'm saying we have a country that is in distress.
In just a minute, as we take a very quick break, do you agree with the notion that toxic politics is now finding its position within the opposition?
No, actually, what has developed is I interpreted it as Schadenfreude. You know, that word has its own etymology from, I think, German, or Epikarikase, where there is a great feeling of excitement at the misfortunes of another. Now, that is the system that has developed in our own politics. And it has been fermented, of course, by outright suffering. Of course, everybody now is a target. Like he has said, after an election, everybody is either on bail, or somebody is a survivor, or some bullets, and people are explaining things in a manner that you can't understand. That condition has developed Uganda into a state where everybody is happy at the misfortunes of certain people. What is existing in, for example, NUP, FDC, DP, you will find that somebody comes here hitting another.
Of course, yeah.
One thing I have never done in my life, and I want God to keep me this way, is coming here and hit anybody by name. Because I don't find it practicable that person is ideally following a similar mission would come here and hit each other, when actually those hitting us and leading us are doing so without due regard to any frameworks that have been established under the laws of Uganda. He has told you there is no political party leading Uganda. What is existing is a fusion of the state machinery. I think you can call the principle, there are majorly two. Zabanism, where there is outright use of the military, and the prebendalism, using state resources to acquire the grip. And this is what is happening. And everybody calls it a political party. For me, I laugh. I have told you there is no political. And I came here and I told you, NRM, no. Maybe at best you can describe it as a dogmatic cult with a simplified and easily graspable catechism, and with President Museveni as the high priest celebrating the mass. That is probably what you can call it.
That's what it is.
But there is no. Tell me one single
when I have called NRM a corruption enterprise, Simon here, blinks.
Yes,
but that's what it is.
That is it. Tell me one day when the president is scared that this time SEC is sitting, I don't know what these guys are going to decide. Instead, they're the ones fearing what is the mood of Mzee now that we are going to meet. So
we continue looking at the bigger picture in the current storm brewing within the opposition political parties, specifically the National Unity Platform. Well, Godba, traditionally, at the height of every season, there is a place to watch. With the drama unfolding now in Masaka, do you think Masaka is now the new melting pot of politics that in the coming days we should be watching, with even a big announcement now on the radar that on the 21st of June, something will be coming up. Mpuga will be announcing something big.
No, I really doubt that. I wouldn't look at it from that perspective. I think that we are still almost more than a year, more than 1.5 years to the elections. The conditions in the country are very, very fragile. So there are going to be many shifts and turns. I think the configuration for the 2026 elections have not been fully formed. The only person who has control over the current trend of events is Museveni. The rest of the people are playing in his game. So you can go to Masaka and announce anything, and maybe in another 2 or 3 years it will actually fizzle out. Nothing really significant. So I haven't seen the level of organization of Ugandans that you can say this is a potential tectonic shift in the politics of the country. So right now, I would say that President Museveni still has the levers, because he has been able to compromise and almost buy and compromise everybody. The opposition, normally the opposition to dictatorships, and I'm not talking about not opposition to politics, opposition to dictatorships And very corrupt regimes like the NRM one normally come from the civil society.
Which is now muted.
The civil society has been, it has actually been scattered. It's not only muted, it has been scattered because most of the funding of the civil society groups in this country were coming from DGF, the Democratic Governance Facility. The regime was able to close DGF and scatter the financing arrangement that exists. Opposition normally comes from trade unions and professional bodies as a very, very core, solid constituency of civil society. The trade unions were built off a long time ago. The professional bodies of lawyers and doctors and engineers, they are all hiding because these are risk-averse people. The last front line of opposition to corrupt and dictatorial regime like the one we have now come from religious leaders. You have very high-spirited religious leaders, like we had Janan Rumu here, more or less like at the front line of fighting the Amin dictatorship. The current religious leaders, right from the archbishops, maybe with the exception of the Catholic Church archbishop, but the Anglican, the Orthodox, these born again, they are all cheerleaders of the regime. So you don't expect that these are the ones that are going to say no. You as president, as a ruling government, you are not going to be unjust to our people. You are not going to oppress our people. You are not going to unleash violence. So these have been thoroughly co-opted. So the only tectonic shifts in our politics is going to come almost the way we did with the TDA. If people had the courage and the discipline and the commitment that you would have to mobilize that third force that Michael talked about, it would have to be organized. But it has to be organized in a sense that it brings together Ugandans from all our population segments.
Yeah, but with the current construct of political parties, for instance, can a TDA suffice? No,
a TDA of political parties is not going to work. Because you are basically the political parties. These are, and I prefer calling them political groups. These are formations of people who are interested in active politics. They are not the ones that are going to form a third force. The political groups can only be one of the segments. If you see a formation that does not bring on board all these other segments, the trade unions, the professional bodies, the civil society, the clergy leaders, all these groups, if you see a formation that does not bring them together to confront the current dictatorship, then you know that we are playing exactly the game of President Museveni, because that means he has been able to keep everybody apart. Because the population right now is scattered, and you need a formation, you need a movement of sorts that brings together citizens of goodwill, who love this country, who are committed to defend and everybody, who are committed to the prosperity of everybody. Right now, as Michael said, you have a group that is within Fred said, you have a group that is solidly in the eating group. They can do deals. The regime is happy. They can co-opt you. You take deals and do this. And then there's the other group of us who are completely marginalized, who are oppressed. The traders now, they thought they were in the safe zone. Now they know the taxman is coming for them. And even, by the way, this buying of space, because President Museveni, the way he manages groups, normally when you have an issue, he meets you and he promises you, we're going to look into it. But in most cases, looking into it means that he's looking, who are your leaders? And he will co-opt them one by one until you are all scattered. So you wait for the traders. They are going to be here crying like all of us.
Well, with the spotlight now on what happens next in Mpuga's political journey, do you think Masaka is the place to watch in the coming days?
No, not at all. Actually, when you read the body language of Honorable Mpuga, when Dr. Bedi was speaking, you would see somebody who is being dragged to the ballot paper without any amount of willingness.
Maybe to the guillotine.
Yeah, to the guillotine. I can tell you, I think, because that is simply and merely firebrand idealism. What we need is actual reorganization of all political forces. Actually, if those people wanted to come to DP, I would open the door widely open. because that's where they belong. Then we can now be reorganized into substantive talks with all the other civil society organizations.
So you want to look at them for now as renegades within the National Unity Platform?
Because we don't know why they disagreed. The cause for disagreement.
Yes.
Clearly now, if anybody intends to arbitrate between them, to mediate, you would now find a problem, first of all, getting the checklist of points for discussion. Mm-hmm. What would they be? Because, so to me, clearly, it looks like they only used the NUP as a roundabout to get back to DP, and I think we do the politics and go ahead. But it is getting late for the main mission of obviously dislodging this government. It is becoming almost a logical impossibility. By December, I think most people will be zeroing down on what we used to call in mathematics, rounding off to the nearest. Most of them now will be locating constituencies for parliament, councillors, and clearly making promises that they can never fulfill in order to obtain such seats for job purposes. If we are still thinking about having this government called a former government, then we must quickly work together.
Do you feel Bobi Wine still has the grip he's held for years, even at the beginning, from the time of the people power to date?
No, he has never had any grip. He's just a symbol.
Yes, he's a symbol of resistance. Yeah, he's a symbol
no
of resistance.
Grip. Yeah. And his is majorly celebrity panjandrum. It's not a grip. Mm-hmm. It can be put to tatters even in 1 minute. Yeah. So I think a lot of people who are misinterpreting it as a grip have almost also led him into making mistakes. The same way we also think that we are members and leaders of the opposition, but we are not the leaders of opposition. No, these people have got their own minds against the state. Yeah. If you are a leader, then it would suffice that when you cross, people go with you. That doesn't exist. So it is different from, for example, the leaderships in Kenya that are based on decisions of leaders and regions follow. Here in Uganda, it doesn't happen. No, tell me one single politician that can disagree, can change, join the NRM, and the population also escorts him.
By the way, what does a fractured group mean to the political mix?
It is just, we are giving a multiplicity of divergent opinions to a population that is suffering from a low relative political maturity. So it is majorly a disturbance.
It's a disturbance.
It is a disturbance. We are just doing a disservice to the country because now the population are tired. They don't know now what to do.
But I think, Simon, also you need to understand. You ask yourself, with Muhoozi and his group, if Museveni did not have the power to appoint Muhoozi as CDF and appoint his group members in the cabinet, you could have exactly the same crisis
I think
in NRM.
You're being speculative here.
What do you mean?
No, he's not.
What do you mean?
If you have listened internally,
I mean,
there are major problems.
If you have,
I never read or saw any smolderings, any signs.
No. At the point when a senior army officer called Muhoozi, who is the son of the president, calls NRM a reactionary party, that's what exactly it means. That's what you have in NUP. So if Museveni did not have that power to say, I am putting here CDF, and when you have been appointed CDF, your capacity to disrupt has been limited. You guys who have been running around the country organizing birthday parties, now you are ministers. Can they go and organize them? So if that opportunity was not there, you can have exactly the same quarrels and crises that you are seeing in NUP. So I think the point I want to make is that Ugandans need to understand that our problems are not NUP, they are not FDC, they are not DP. Our problems is this group that has captured the state of Uganda, the state resources, the state institutions, the state security agencies, and they are using them against us. Yes. That as long as we can be able to reach that level of political consciousness and know that this is where the problem is, then these footnote quarrels, because the quarrels in NUP and everywhere I call them footnotes, they are really not they are not the major issue here. We need to be focusing on how do we liberate the state of Uganda from capture so that it works for every single Ugandan, whether you believe in NRM, in DP, in whichever group you want.
How come, if these are mere footnotes like he prefers to call them, they have been able to grip the nation.
Yeah, because the nation also, of course, there's what we refer to as the agenda-setting role of the media. Yeah. When the media highlights them as very serious entities,
the media makes it the debate.
It makes it the debate.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, the real debate is not exactly what is happening.
Yeah, it's not.
Which political party has reached out now to the traders for purposes of mobilization and sensitization on the correct route to take?
Yeah.
Because and I think that would be the major matter for us to consider.
Or perhaps I would ask, is NUP taking the DP route?
What is the DP route?
What is the route?
What is the DP route?
Of people leaving the DP and crossing?
Going down.
No. DP, UPC, FDC, you know, the problem is thinking we formed political parties when actually people never belonged to them. People supported leaders that were the face of the mission, the face of the fights against oppression. You can only become a symbol. Even Sebagala had become a symbol. Yeah. If he had been given the opportunity to lead, he would have led. Yeah. So Dr. Semogere handed it over to Sebagala. Sebagala gave it to Dr. Besigye. Dr. Besigye. Everybody can coin it and coach it in the party terms. But that
is it Besigye who handed it to Mao and Mao handed it to NRM?
No, Mao did not get it. He did not get that. I thought that leadership. No.
No, he got a piece of it.
He got just a little bit.
Small piece of it.
Because people formed the SUI and handed it over to Besigye.
Yeah.
So he missed out on that. Yeah. He only came with the 3 districts from northern Uganda.
Yes.
And so he failed. But now Dr. Besigye got it. He didn't even hand it over. If it was about somebody handing it over, it was only snatched from him. So, and Chagulani, if anybody else comes and he's believed to be the ringleader of the voice against oppression, he will not even know where it has run away from. It will bolt out of his grip.
Gentlemen, we need to get out of here. And I really want to thank you very much. As we sign out of here, thank you very much, Godban. Thank you very much, Honorable Mbidde.